Okay, so tell her it's on and ready to go. And oh, she's got it on. The recording's been started.
Okay, well, we'll call our meeting to order. The first thing is a roll call. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Wynant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wageman.
Yes.
And Manager Priner here. The next thing is to set our agenda. Anybody like to add or subtract from the agenda today?
President Priner, staff have two adjustments. We would like to add a new number 6, which would be the Clean Water Council position. And then also a new number 7, which would be authorization for payment of November 2020 check register.
That would be resolution 2020-25.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And then the current number 6 would become 8, just pushing it down.
Thank you, Nick. Anybody else have anything today to add or subtract? If not, I'll need a motion.
I'll move the agenda. This is Marcy.
Second.
Motion and second with additions. Any further discussion? Call for a vote. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Wynant.
Can't
Manager
hear her. I think she went out.
Okay, Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wageman.
Yes.
And Manager Priner. We should wait for her vote, I guess.
Froze.
Yes, that seems appropriate. The screen is frozen on my end for her.
Mine is too. Oh, there it's me.
There's
There we
Marcy.
go.
Marcy, we did call for a vote. Is it aye, Freedom? This was to set the agenda? Okay. Aye for. All right, so we will move forward to the approval of the minutes.
Marcy, would you like me to do the minutes?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
No,
Yep.
Just barely.
Yes, please.
Okay, Madam President, I move to approve the minutes for the October 26, 2020 special meeting.
I'll second those.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Now I'll call for a vote. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Wynant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wageman.
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. Motion passes.
And then I would move to approve the October 28th, 2020 regular meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll go for a vote. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Wynant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
And Manager Wageman.
Yes.
And Manager Priner. I think at this time I did not get any visitors on our meeting. That we should have a identification of who's ever here and who they represent, please. Anybody?
This is John Lenander. I'm with the city of Fridley.
Thank you.
I can go next. This is Michael McKinney. I'm with Bar Engineering Company.
Okay.
This is Nathan Campo. I'm also with Bar Engineering Company.
Okay. Anybody else out there? Okay, with that, we'll move to our consent agenda.
President Priner, Board of Managers, staff have 5 permit applications for your consideration today, all presented in the packet without changes.
Any questions on the board? Hearing none, we're going to just, it's a consent agenda, so we're going to need a motion.
Madam President, I move that we accept the permit applications established on page 24, which are numbers 20-041, 20-075, 20-080, 20-092, and 20-093 in accordance with the Rice Creek Watershed District Engineer's findings and recommendations dated November 3 and 4, 2020.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Any questions? Hearing none, we're going to call for a vote. Manager Waller,
Yes.
Manager Winant. Marcy, can you hear us? Your mic's not on.
It would help, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Okay, Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wagaman,
Yes.
and Manager Priner, yes, motion passes. Open mic, is there anybody here that would like to speak to open mic? Other than the things that are already on the agenda? Anybody? Nobody out there. Okay, so we're gonna go to number 1. And that's,
Yes,
go ahead, Nick.
Yes, President Preiner, this is regards to the REIT petition. It's on page 60 of the packet. Ashley is here to represent the item.
Okay, Ashley?
Good morning, Board of Managers. As Nick mentioned, we have a petition from.
Madam President,
Yes,
I have a question about what happened to the presentation, Norton Creek,
Yeah.
City of Fridley.
wait a minute.
That's after open mic.
It's after open mic and before items for action.
Yeah.
Well, my mistake. Apologize. We can go back to the presentation.
Nice.
Cool. I'm going to attempt to share screens here in that case. I'm going to be the one presenting today. Again, my name's Michael McKinney from Bar Engineering Company. Let me see if I can't get this all set up. So I'm hitting present. I think I'm probably sharing a screen right now. Are you seeing my presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Great, cool. Well, again, just to reintroduce myself, my name is Michael McKinney. I'm with Bar Engineering Company, and today I'm presenting the findings from the Norton Creek Watershed Feasibility Study. This was a study that we completed with the City of Fridley here in 2020. And one of the main reasons that we're presenting it here at the board meeting today is that this project was partially funded by a Rice Creek Watershed District grant that was awarded to the City of Fridley. So yeah, before I jump in, I just wanted to take a moment to say a big thank you to the Board of Managers and to Rice Creek Watershed District for taking interest in this project and for participation throughout and for helping getting this project complete. So with that, I'll see if I can't turn on my laser pointer here. So Norton Creek Watershed is shown here on the figure to the left. You can see the watershed is nearly 1,000 acres, spanning portions of the city of Fridley, the city of Spring Lake Park, and city of Mounds View. Norton Creek itself is located kind of in the southwest portion of the sub-watershed. This is sort of the only open portion of the creek that remains. And just to provide some context here, we've got, Highway 65 along the west-hand side of the watershed, and we've got, Old Central sort of going through the center of the center of the watershed area. And Norton Creek kind of goes back into a storm sewer here. It goes underneath the Medtronic parking lot, if you're familiar with where that facility is. And then it dumps straight down here into Rice Creek and drains out from there. So this watershed area is of interest to the city of Fridley and to Rice Creek Watershed District, mainly because there has been a lot of development that has occurred in this watershed over the past 80 years. Just to give some sort of perspective for that, what we're showing here on the left, we have Norton Creek watershed area circa 1938. So, again, about 80 years ago. And we've got current conditions, circa 2018 shown here on the right. So it's very interesting to see. I mean, the watershed has really changed significantly over the past 80 years. Obviously, the most obvious thing to note is that there's a lot less development 80 years ago. But if we actually look down here at Norton Creek, we can see the creek corridor sort of extends, probably up to at least 73rd Ave, maybe becomes more of an ephemeral system sort of going further north into the watershed. Whereas if we turn the clock forward 80 years, all of a sudden, well, where did Norton Creek go? It's been confined to a storm sewer system for portions of its former corridor. Right now, it currently discharges to a small portion of open channel through this area. It then gets put back into a storm sewer underneath the Medtronic parking lot before ultimately discharging to Rice Creek. So as you can imagine, with this amount of development and with confining the creek into a storm sewer system, we end up having a lot of flooding issues that occur, in particular along this sort of former corridor of Norton Creek that we sort of refer to throughout the report and this presentation as the focus area. So that was one reason that this area was initially of interest to the city of Fridley was to try and develop some flood mitigation opportunities for this area. But, you know, as you can imagine, with this amount of development that's occurred, we're also generating higher runoff rates to the channel, which is causing channel degradation. And we're generating more suspended sediment loading and associated pollutant loading that's all getting discharged to Rice Creek. So this watershed is really of interest both from a flood mitigation and a water quality perspective. So we've kind of got the overview for this study listed here. The major goal of this study was to develop models of the watershed to evaluate water quality improvement opportunities and flood mitigation alternatives within the watershed. We also then developed high-level costs estimates for each one of those opportunities, and we developed a list of recommendations and next steps, both for the city and for partnering organizations such as Rice Creek Watershed District to consider. We developed an XP swim model of the watershed area to evaluate flood mitigation opportunities, and we developed a P8 water quality model. These are just the names of different modeling programs to evaluate different water quality improvement opportunities. The main reason I bring this up is just to point out that the XP swim model, we created a version to be directly compatible with the Rice Creek Watershed District Info Swim model, so that this XP swim model that's very highly detailed can sort of be copy and pasted directly into the Rice Creek Watershed District model. So with that, I'm actually going to jump right into XP swim results. So what we're showing here on this image to the right is flooding inundation extents for the 100-year, 10-year, and 2-year design events. So the 100-year Atlas 14 event in this area is about a 7.5-inch 24-hour rainfall event. So yeah, a very significant rainfall event. And again, this area was evaluated using the XP swim model. So as you can imagine, there is flooding that occurs in all portions of this 878-acre watershed area. But the most extreme flooding inundation impacts sort of occur in what we're calling, again, the focus area of this study, which is this corridor that was sort of along the former, the original sort of Norton Creek corridor. And when we originally shared these results with the city of Fridley, they were not terribly shocked by seeing this sort of level of inundation because they currently receive a lot of complaints and nuisance flooding issues and complaints from business owners and property owners in this area. When we were out in the field, we actually ran into one of these business owners who was really excited to share with us some videos and some photos that he was able to capture of a significant rainfall event that occurred in July of 2019. If I can hit play on this, we can see we've got a surcharging manhole in the sort of north portion of this parking lot. Again, this is a portion where the channel has been put into this is a 72-inch pipe system that then is constricted to a 48-inch pipe system, leads to a lot of surcharging and flooding issues during large rainfall events. The same business owner also showed us some photos that he captured from that same July 15th rainfall event of flooding on 73rd Ave. You can see pretty extensive flooding in the road corridor and flooding in the actual parking lot area of these businesses. So yeah, it was very interesting to see what flooding looks like in this area, and it was actually really useful to get this information because we were actually able to use what we were seeing from the surcharging results and the flood inundation extents to sort of validate our XP swim model in this area. So in addition to the XP swim modeling, we also developed a P8 water quality model of the entire watershed. So again, the big goal of the water quality modeling effort was to determine how much sediment and pollutant loading is coming from the watershed, how much is removed in existing BMPs. So we have, existing wet ponds and existing infiltration basins throughout the watershed. And then really importantly, how much is actually discharging ultimately to Rice Creek. One interesting type of result that we get from this P8 modeling are these sort of heat maps of pollutant loading. So what we're showing here on the left is the total suspended sediment loading from watersheds within the Norton Creek watershed, where red indicates the highest TSS loading rates and green indicates the lowest TSS loading rates. And on the right, we're showing the same figure, but showing total phosphorus loading. So sort of unsurprisingly, the most elevated areas of pollutant loading sort of occur within this, what we're calling the sort of focus area of the study, due in large part to just having higher development density. We've got a lot of commercial and industrial businesses in this area, lots of impervious area that generates lots of pollutant loading. So we chose this focus area to sort of focus our water quality improvement opportunities on. So we evaluated several different types of water quality improvement opportunities, ranging from green street alternatives, where we're sort of putting bump outs in the roads and putting small bioretention cells along the actual street corridor, to hydrodynamic separators at catch basins throughout the watershed. And then we also evaluated the intrinsic water quality benefit of BMPs that we originally looked at to provide flood mitigation. So these would be things like above ground storage and also below ground storage. So, underground filtration and infiltration vaults, things like that. Again, I'll have to just fly through a lot of these results. The report outlines a lot of these results in a high level of detail to provide the city and partner organizations with a lot of context for which water quality improvement opportunities and flood mitigation opportunities are more and less attractive from a cost benefit perspective. But we did provide sizing recommendations for many different types of BMPs within the watershed, and also calculated pollutant load reduction values for each one of those BMPs. And then we also developed cost estimates for each one of these different types of water quality BMPs. As well as calculated some metrics for cost-benefit analysis, including the cost to remove 1 pound of TSS and the cost to remove 1 pound of total phosphorus. And these sorts of numbers can be reviewed and compared to sort of do that cost-benefit analysis to help the city and partner organizations figure out which one of these opportunities are more and less attractive. Jumping straight into flood mitigation strategies, we developed a number of different flood mitigation strategies, again, mostly focused on what we're calling the focus area of Norton Creek, providing different levels of protection. So when I say provide 100-year level of protection, that basically means that our design goal was to protect all structures within that focus area up to the 100-year rainfall event. And then we also looked at strategies to provide lower levels of protection. So protecting structures up to the 50-year event or up to the 10-year design event. And of course, we looked at a number of different flood mitigation strategies, which I will talk about here on the next slides. So often when we're thinking about flood mitigation, the easiest thing to first consider is increasing outflow conveyance from a watershed. So basically this means, putting in larger storm sewer diameters, putting in dual storm sewer systems to basically move that stored volume out of this flooding area more quickly, again, with the goal of protecting structures. So a lot of times these conveyance options, they can be very attractive in terms of they're a lot cheaper than other flood mitigation alternatives to implement. But the downside here is that in a way you're sort of moving the problem somewhere else. You're taking that inundated volume and you're moving it to Rice Creek more quickly. So this can lead to higher runoff rates in Rice Creek, potentially leading to channel degradation, potentially leading to downstream flooding impacts. So, and again, these conveyance options can be very difficult from a permitting perspective, and can sometimes even be a non-starter from a permitting perspective. But in the context of a feasibility study, it's really important to evaluate these sort of options to sort of bookend the cost benefit analysis. Because again, a lot of times increasing conveyance is sort of the easiest and cheapest way of providing flood mitigation. So in addition to increasing conveyance, we also looked at opportunities to provide additional storage within the watershed. So basically, this is looking for opportunities to store runoff volume in either above ground storage locations or below ground storage locations, again, with the goal of protecting structures. We looked at various different configurations of above ground and below ground storage to provide different levels of protection. And we also looked at combinations of alternatives. So what I mean there is we would review some level of conveyance increase and some level of underground and above ground storage to provide a sort of suite of different alternatives, all with different sort of cost benefit analyses. So again, not going to be able to digest too many of these numbers here, but just to give a sort of idea of what is actually contained in the report. We developed cost estimates for conveyance only alternatives. So these are alternatives where we're just increasing storm sewer conveyance. Cost estimates for storage only. So providing flood mitigation through above ground and below ground storage, and combination alternatives where we provide both above below ground storage and also increased conveyance for different levels of protection. So we have an 100-year level of protection, down to a 10-year level of protection. Again, just to sort of give the whole picture of different strategies for providing flood mitigation in this area. Again, long story short here, it's very difficult to provide an 100-year level of protection, especially within the focus area of this watershed. And it's likely more feasible to set a design goal of providing a 10-year level of protection, which quite frankly, a lot of times when you're designing storm sewer, the goal is to actually provide that 10-year level of protection with the understanding that providing a 100-year level of protection to structures can be very difficult when the 100-year event is, again, a 7.5-inch rainfall event. Another takeaway here is that it is costly to provide flood mitigation without increasing conveyance rate to Rice Creek. Again, appreciating that there's a lot of concerns with increasing outflow rate to Rice Creek, but when you really break down the cost benefit analysis, I think it's important to at least keep conveyance alternatives on the table and be able to consider what those impacts could be through maybe a more detailed HEC-RAS analysis, or actually putting these model results into the creek and seeing what sort of impacts you might have downstream. And another takeaway here is that above ground storage is much less costly than below ground storage, which really isn't a surprise to anyone. But as we saw from the aerial imagery in this area, there's not a lot of room to provide above ground storage right now. So in some ways, these above ground storage alternatives are something to keep in mind as development in this area changes. As properties go under development or redevelopment and reconstruction, there might be opportunities to work with developers to actually try and provide some of this above ground storage, with the alternative being you'd need to try and provide this below ground, which is significantly more expensive. So the deliverables for this feasibility study were, of course, the models and the cost benefit analysis and the recommendations. And a sort of a brief synopsis of the recommendations are included on these slides. Again, a takeaway here is that it is difficult to achieve flood mitigation goals without increasing conveyance rates to Rice Creek. It is recommended that the design goal for providing flood mitigation would be to choose that 10-year level of protection rather than an 100-year level of protection. We recommend, whenever possible, pursuing BMP alternatives that provide both water quality benefit and flood mitigation, just to, again, get that sort of dual benefit. We recommend that the city coordinate with partner organizations to evaluate the different alternatives that are presented in this study and to determine which ones are more or less attractive from a cost benefit perspective. And then we had some additional recommendations just related to validating the model in terms of, actually going out and surveying low entry elevations to have a better understanding when these structures really do become impacted. Potentially performing a monitoring study to evaluate the hydrologic and hydraulic assumptions within the study area. And again, sort of looking into the future, continuing to monitor development and redevelopment and road reconstruction projects within the study area, because often these water quality and flood mitigation opportunities is a lot easier when you can time it out with for example, road reconstruction project or a major development or redevelopment project within the study area. So again, I'm sorry I had to really fly through that presentation. We were trying to keep it somewhere between 10 to 15 minutes. If you have any questions at this time, please feel free to ask.
Any questions from the board? Comments?
Good morning, Michael. This is Manager Wynett. As the sunny day this weekend would have it, I went to look at the work we did on Lower Rice Creek and ended up in that parking lot that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Up a large enough to, I think it's probably the watershed map you showed.
Sure, yeah, I can go back.
And enlarge it.
Let's see if I can do that. I probably have a zoom in here. Unfortunately, we don't show the parking lot here. You know what? I wonder, I actually have an ARC map open of this area. I wonder if I can quickly get to that.
So I'm understanding that all of the water from the Norton Creek watershed is entering Rice Creek at that point right in there, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that there's open ditch and then there is storm sewer. Is that
exactly
under all that industrial park area?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I can give a quick run through of this whole system here. It's kind of interesting. So this area,
if you can make it just a little bigger or just do the map, because I think.
Oh, sure. Are you able to see the map that I have pulled up now, or are you still seeing my presentation?
I'm seeing the map. I'm also seeing all the details on the.
Oh, like the lines and I can get rid of some of this stuff here. Let's see if we can maybe make this a little smaller. So I can maybe even turn off the watersheds here. So as you can see, this portion of the creek, this used to be an open channel, again, looking at that sort of 1938 map. And at some point, development in this area confined the creek to an actual pipe system. So there's a sort of large 72-inch storage pipe that goes underneath this property here. Which is then constricted back down into a 48-inch pipe system right through here. Again, I think the 72-inch vault was put in here more to sort of provide some temporary attenuation and some storage underneath this area. But again, it does get truncated back down to a 48-inch pipe system through here, where it then discharges into a open channel. So this is a open channel that flows down to here, where then it re-enters a storm sewer system, and it gets a little complicated down here. There's a branching system. Ultimately, it gets constricted to a 60-inch pipe system underneath the Medtronic parking lot. If you've been out here in this area, in 2019, you might have saw there was a massive pipe failure that happened underneath this parking lot. Joint separation. There was it's basically a sinkhole that formed in this portion of the parking lot, and they actually replaced that pipe system with an in-kind 60-inch pipe system. So this remains sort of a 60-inch pipe through here, and then it discharges to the bottom of Norton Creek, which this is basically just a ravine that goes straight down into Rice Creek. So that's how this system functions currently.
To the east of Central is where we've just done all the work. Is that correct, Matt? Done all the Lower Rice Creek work.
Yeah, Manager Wyan, it's just to the west of Highway 65, actually. So it's just downstream of the project area that's being shown.
Right. Okay. And then based on our conversation yesterday, who's responsible for all those, for that, the repair and conditioning of the storm sewer. Is that responsibility?
Are you talking about the work in the Medtronics parking lot?
Well, I'm throughout the whole system because we had conversations yesterday about, who's responsible for those closed systems. I guess I'd ask Chris that one. That
Yeah.
kind of follow-
Manager-
Go ahead, Nick.
So here there is no public drainage system in existence, which was the focus of our conversation yesterday. This is a combination of city storm sewer, which would be the catchments on the road and such, and then that pipe system as it moves underground, et cetera, periodically daylighting. But in situations, and this is where maybe the Fridley folks would join in, the Medtronic and that, if the landowner there, Medtronic, wanted to cover up the natural feature of the daylighted creek and put it in a pipe, it would, in my mind, they would likely be the responsible party for the fix.
Okay, so this is not public. This is
Correct, not public
Okay.
drainage system, but a combination of public storm sewer and then probably augmented with, I'll call it private crossings or private storm sewer system. And maybe John from Fridley, do I have that correct? I believe I do.
Yes, and that is correct. And I can't, when the storm sewer was put in the Medtronics property, I was not here, so I don't know the exact details of that. But the storm sewer, we have a drainage and utility easement over that storm sewer. And when it failed, it was Medtronics that came in and did the repairs. They actually realigned the pipe slightly and did a few other things, and we got new easements for it. But it is essentially their pipe, and they're responsible for it.
Okay, thank you. And you're right, Fridley, you guys are exploding there. Every time I go, you've got more and more development. So beautiful city hall, by the way.
Thank you. And we do feel that in this area here, that we expect that redevelopment is going to continue in this entire 1,000-acre watershed, not only in Fridley, but also in the other cities that are a part of this.
President Preiner.
Go ahead.
Board of Managers, I can't overstate the value here. You heard what John just said and Marcy in regards to the explosion of development or redevelopment. Those equate to opportunities, and without the base science and detail in place, knowing what those opportunities are or how we might collaborate with the city of Fridley and those private landowners is really kind of a black hole. So this is a great, a roadmap or base information with science that supports what actions are practical. Certainly the public in general likes to see solutions and do something, but without this, you're really just guessing. And I don't know, maybe Chris, Otterness, or Kyle have something else to add.
Nick, I can jump in. This is Kyle. And I would really echo that. Norton Creek has been a kind of a mystery sub-watershed corridor for quite some time. And I'd been working with the city of Fridley, looking at, well, how can we do this? How can we study this? What can we learn for a number of years, and finally getting to the point where we culminated in partnering to fund this study that BAR completed. And I think it really lays, as Nick said, a lot of the groundwork for either, again, base information for future redevelopment as it occurs, or if there are opportunities for standalone projects, this report will give us the information we need to work with Fridley on, any future grant applications, if there's something that makes some sense. and then the fact that it was done in a way that can be, seamlessly integrated into the district-wide model, makes this study more of a resource for the district itself and Houston engineering as we analyze, runoff rates and volumes in this area of the district. But just knowing where storm sewer goes out there now and understanding that and flow rates is just a huge piece of that pie. So happy that this got done, and I think it'll lay that foundation for us to move forward. Just to take a straw poll. How many board members knew that we had a creek called Norton Creek in the watershed? It was, when Fridley first came to me a few years back about, it's like, wait, Norton Creek, what are you talking about? It's just one of those little kind of mystery, forgotten drainages that we have. So it's not so forgotten anymore.
Kyle,
Mhm.
Kyle, I think you should also give some credit to the great work of the Citizens Advisory Committee, because as I recall, that group took a serious look at this, because it was being able to prioritize the multiple applications that came before them. So thank those groups.
Sure, absolutely.
Any further comments on the presentation or questions?
So this is Bradley. I'm thinking Matt Koshin must be having a heart attack listening to this.
Yeah.
I support, obviously, being the Captain Obvious, the importance to us of protecting the investment we've already made on those repairs downstream from them.
President Briner, may I
Yes,
jump
certainly.
in?
Go ahead. Yep.
Thank you, Manager Bradley, for the segue there. Did you see me on the edge of my seat? I just waited to say something. I'm really glad I'm at this board meeting so that I could see this, because there is a great tie-in with the Lower Rice Creek work that's currently being wrapped up by BAR and by the city of Fridley, who've been great partners on that project. So as Manager Wynant pointed out, the Lower Rice Creek Stabilization Project is just downstream of this where this sub-watershed enters. There you can see it on kind of the left side of that map there. There it is, yep. So I guess the main note that I wanted to make, and Michael, great presentation. I think this is really great work. And I certainly appreciate how it's costly and difficult to provide flood mitigation without increasing conveyance rates here. Fully built out watershed, older infrastructure. You've got pipes that are throttling from large pipes down to small pipes that are causing those flooding problems. So I recognize that and respect that. But there are other costs that the district would incur, that the city of Fridley would incur, Anoka County Parks downstream by further increasing conveyance rates here. So we know that the primary driver of the erosion in Lower Rice Creek is these high flow rates. So that erosion is sending more sediment down to Lock Lake, the Mississippi River. So there is a cost associated with that. And just one other kind of an aside, I guess, Michael, when you talked about above ground versus below ground storage and breaking out those costs, were you looking at long-term costs of pond maintenance and things like that too?
Yes, yeah, there was operation and maintenance was annualized and calculated back into that total upfront capital cost. So yes, that was considered, and that's another reason why underground storage doesn't become more costly, is because you also do have sort of larger ongoing maintenance concerns with those underground features, and we all know sometimes those features don't get maintained, and sometimes they do get neglected, and that can also lead to costs. So, and I very much appreciate the comments about increasing conveyance rate to Rice Creek. This is something that this is a comment that came up based on the initial draft review of the report as well, and we actually went back through the report and added a lot more context to the outflows from Rice Creek in terms of actually summarizing, okay, well, what is the increase in outflow rate for each one of these different alternatives, just to provide that context and to allow us to, in the future, if these were on the table, if these were considered, we would have the information needed to do that sort of coincident frequency analysis where we evaluate increasing outflow rate from this study area and the timing of flows in Rice Creek. And I definitely appreciate the comment though that these opportunities that increase conveyance, they can have issues for Rice Creek and for downstream areas, and that's why again they were included in this feasibility study mainly as a way to sort of bookend costs and to have that cost comparison to show, you know, this is the cost and the benefit of doing this, of accomplishing flood mitigation through some amount of conveyance. Maybe we don't do it solely through conveyance. But you know, maybe there is some balancing point where the potential costs to the receiving portions of the creek sort of balance out the costs of actually performing or providing flood mitigation in the actual study area.
Yeah, Michael, you just highlighted the importance, I think, of creating a model that integrates with the existing Houston model, which it sounds like you did. So good on you guys for doing that, because as we evaluate these alternatives, some work has already been done by Houston to evaluate different flood storage alternatives in the floodplain and things like that. So knowing how changes in the future to the Norton Creek watershed would affect peak flows in Lower Rice Creek would be very valuable.
Definitely, and this is a challenge that many municipalities, watershed district WMOs are facing, is trying to figure out. We've got these conveyance channels. How can we utilize them to help provide flood mitigation in areas, and at what point are we overutilizing them? And it's a very difficult question, and I'm glad you brought this up, because we do need to be considerate of the fact that some of these alternatives do have the potential to degrade conditions in Rice Creek.
Okay, any other comments or questions from Mr. McKinney?
President Preiner, I do see that Manager Waller or Teresa have their hand up.
Okay. Go ahead.
Madam President, thank you. I think this is a very important point that's been made here about making certain the system is completely mapped, and not just the urban area, but planning for the future where the MUSA doesn't exist. It's just essential to keep records of how this goes on, and I'm glad that we've done this project here, because as Kyle said, I never heard of this place either. But there's a lot of problems. Even when you, for example, our last meeting, we had a gentleman in here from Delwood who was talking about a pipe that was put in that Rice Creek had permitted. And so I don't think, I never heard that pipe before. And so it's important that we have those records updated and that we keep an idea of what's going on. So thank you very much for integrating this project.
Hey, anything else for Mr. McKinney?
Madam President, one more quick thought on this. This is related to what Matt and Michael were talking about a little earlier. Again, it's very good and very important that the modeling that they completed does integrate with the district-wide model. As Matt indicated, we can utilize the existing district-wide model to evaluate what the potential effect might be if increased flows come down into Rice Creek. And one of the important things, of course, would be the velocity of flow down in that channel that has now been stabilized down there. And so that's actually something that can fairly or relatively easily be done, within the existing district model, just by plugging in the flows from the one recently completed by the City of Fridley and Barr. One other thing I'll note too is that as they indicate in their presentation, there are areas that are being developed, or I should say redeveloped in this area. And this is part of the flood management zone in the district. So because it's in the flood management zone, when permits come through, they are required to reduce flow rate from those properties by 20%. And that's one thing that will need to be considered as these properties are developing. There's going to be some of this storage that does occur on the landscape just through the process of redevelopment itself. And so the earlier that the district can know about these properties that are likely or imminently becoming redeveloped, that may help in the planning process as well, to know where those permits are going to need to complete that those storage on the landscape. And that also might pick away at the need for the storage in some locations, or help augment other things that are being planned by the city.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Anything else?
Madam President, if I may just piggyback onto Chris's comment there, and just as a note for the city, as you do become aware of those projects, as early as you can, talk to us there, where there is, required treatment that, or storage that needs to be placed on the landscape with redevelopment. Those would obviously be prime opportunities to engage in discussions about the opportunities to increase those storage areas beyond rule requirements, maybe by putting the chambers underground, deeper into the ground, and maybe there's an opportunity for some city or watershed district involvement in the cost of doing those. We do have grant programs that can potentially help assist with that. So definitely talk to us about that, and maybe some of those incremental gains can be larger increments as those areas redevelop.
Madam President, this is John Lenander again. Just kind of following up on what Kyle was talking about. I'm certain that there will be projects coming along the line, not only in, like I said, in Fridley, but in the other cities that are out there. I think where you'll probably hear from us next is we still have the 3 properties that this project started with that are currently being flooded, that have damage that we don't really have an answer for, even though we've done this study at this point. So I think that's the next step. The property owners are aware of the study, they're aware of the results, and they're aware of how much money this costs. So they're still in kind of no man's land, and that's what our next step will be, is to try and see what it is we can do to help there. And at this point, I don't really know what that answer is.
Okay, anybody else? All right, thank you all very much, and we're going to move on to our agenda. Thank you, Mr. McKinney, Mr. Leonander.
I will stop sharing screens here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There you go. Thank you. Okay, now we're back to Ashley. Ashley still there?
Still here.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam President, Board of Managers. For you, we have Resolution 2020-24 for the appointing of the engineer, Houston Engineering, to review a partial realignment and conversion of Anoka Ramsey Judicial Ditch 1, Branch 2 in Blaine. We are recommending that you guys move forward and appoint Houston to evaluate the petition. Any questions? You want a little more background?
Madam President, it's Bradley. So I see where they're going to decrease the slope from 0.03 to 0.15, which will reduce the outflow, but I assume when Houston will also look at what it does upstream.
Yep, so Houston will look at any kind of upstream or downstream impacts by putting the system in the 2 pipes and changing the slope.
Madam President, to answer Manager Bradley's question as well, one thing to note is that the storm sewer pipe will have actually a smaller friction coefficient and smoother pipes, so that may actually enable that a flatter grade to convey the water just as fast or more quickly as what the existing condition would be. So those are all things, as Ashley noted, that we'll be looking at as we review their application to see what the potential would be for impact, and if the system truly has the same utility as it currently does.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Madam President, I move to approve Resolution 2020-24. Rice Creek Watershed District Board of Managers is Public Drainage Authority findings in order accepting petition and appointing engineer with the following orders. A, the Board of Managers accepts, I gotta get my glasses on here, accepts the petition and appoints Houston Engineering to investigate the effect of the proposed realignment and file a report of findings. B, the engineer is directed to include in its investigation an assessment of effects from the realignment on benefited property owners of the public drainage system. C, the engineer is further directed to provide the board with information related to the life cycle costs of future maintenance of the proposed modifications of the public drainage system. And finally, D, this order is not an approval of the realignment or partial abandonment proceedings, nor does it modify the drainage system. Subsequent proceedings on the petition will occur consistent with the requirements of statute sections 103E.227 and 103E.806.
Need a
I
second?
second that. Manager Winant.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any further discussion on the resolution? If not, I'll call for a vote. Waller?
Yes.
Winant?
Yes.
Bradley?
Yes.
Wageman?
Yes.
Reiner? Yes. Motion passes. All right. Kyle is next.
All right, Madam President, members of the board, we have for your consideration pay request number 2 from Peterson Companies Incorporated for the Bald Eagle Lake Iron Enhanced Sand Filter Project. I will note we were hopeful that this would be a final pay request, but we ran into a little kind of a technical snafu with the state statute changes regarding retainage, which Smith Partners has noted in the past. So as it stands, we are required really to release retainage on the entire project at this time, as it is 100% complete. However, because of the timing of that request, we have one supplier that will not issue a lien waiver because they have not been paid from Peterson yet. It's a very small portion of the project. So this time we are requesting the board authorize pay request number 2 totaling I'm sorry, wrong number, $34,973.45. That will leave approximately $300 and change left for a final pay request, likely in December. I will also note we are waiting still for actual receipt of the lien waivers and IC 134 forms that Peterson is gathering from its subs. Consequently, we will withhold actually issuing this check to Peterson until those are received. I would have waited until later this month to bring this to you, other than we don't have a second board meeting in November. So that's what we're asking for. I will note again, final construction cost came in at $305,416.07, which is just over $18,000 less than the contract amount. So mostly just due to some quantities that we didn't need, and things went very smoothly out there. So any other questions you have, I'd be happy to field them, but we recommend payment number 2 be approved.
Okay, we'll need a motion.
Madam President Bradley, I move to approve Peterson Companies Inc.'s pay request as submitted and certified by the district engineer, and direct staff to issue a payment in the amount of $34,973.45 upon receipt of lien waivers and IC-134 forms, period.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, it'll be a roll call. Manager Waller?
Yes.
Manager Winant?
Yes.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wageman?
Yes.
And Manager Brenner, yes. Motion passes. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
And I believe Matt. Next.
Yes, Madam Chair, Board of Managers, beginning on page 85 of your packet, we have pay request number 2 for Sunram Construction for the Lower Rice Creek Stabilization Project. So as I mentioned in the memo, we are nearly done with construction of this project. So ahead of schedule, had really great conditions for working late this fall and early into this winter here with very low flow in the creek and really good weather. So we've lucked out there. Ahead of schedule a bit, there's going to be some additional work this winter to remove buckthorn, especially along some of the bank stabilization areas. And then next spring, we have native shrubs and live stakes that will be planted along those stabilized banks. But at this point, that's really all the work that is remaining. We do have a nearly 1 year maintenance period at that point. So it's a little bit different than Kyle's work in that the project, even though construction is complete, the project will not go to final payment until that 1 year of maintenance is complete. And the maintenance really is ensuring that all of the native shrubs and live stakes that are planted survive through that period. And if they don't, they're replaced. There could be some watering and weeding and maybe removal of buckthorn over that year. But again, the majority of the project is done. So Barr, the project engineer, has reviewed this second pay request and is recommending payment of $271,512.35.
Madam Chair, this is Manager Wynant. I'd move to approve the partial payment to Sunram Construction, Inc. for the Lower Rice Creek Stabilization Project in the amount of $271,512.35.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Madam President, I have a question.
Okay.
On the last sentence of the first paragraph, it says that amount after retainage. So it's not clear to me whether or not the actual payment is less than that, or if that is after retainage. It's just unclear.
Yeah, Manager Bradley, I apologize if that's unclear. That is the payment after withholding retainage. So you can see on page 86 of the packet, the pay request is $285,802. 5% retainage is $14,290, which leaves us with the payment due.
Thank you for that clarification.
And Madam President, may I ask him one quick question? This is a basic question. It says live stakes. I'm assuming that's trees.
Manager Wagaman, it's generally shrubs. So it would be willow, dogwood, species like that, understory growth that have good root system to hold the bank in place.
Okay, thank you.
Manager Waller?
Madam President, thank you. So it's a year. You put the live stakes in, and if they don't come up, they have to be replaced. What happens in year 2 if they die again?
Yeah, Manager Waller, good question. That kind of comes down to the relative importance of the vegetation on that bank. So in some instances, losing 5 to 10% of live stakes or shrubs is not going to have a major impact on the stability of that bank long term. But if you start losing a larger percentage than that, depending on the site, then it could be something that requires maintenance. For an example of a past project, like on Middle Rice Creek, especially Middle Rice Creek that was done, not the one that was done just in the past couple of years, but like the 2006, 2008 project, we have gone back into that area and found that in some locations we've lost shrubs, mainly the willow, to beaver activity. And so we've had to replant those. Oftentimes we've ended up working with MCC crews, Minnesota Conservation Corps crews, to replant live stakes in those areas. So that's a long-term maintenance activity that the district takes on. But I would say not a very costly one.
Wait a minute. Marcy was next, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Matt, so Barr Engineering helped with the Lower Rice Creek, and Barr Engineering did the Norton Creek. So let's make a supposition that those two groups within Barr Engineering were talking to each other. Is that what we can assume?
Manager Wynant, I would assume.
You don't have to answer that. So yes, because I had the same piece or the same reaction when I thought about all of that flow going in right above the work that we've done. Okay, secondly, if as managers, it is a beautiful restoration. I was just amazed. And, we had those 2 beautiful days this weekend for a nice walk. So I'd encourage you to go down and take a look at it. Amazing to get that big equipment down those steep slopes and doing that work. So when you first did the presentation back in March. I think that was the first board meeting I was at live and in person. I thought this is going to be quite the project, and it's beautiful. And then to the point of buckthorn, who is responsible for all that buckthorn? Is the Anoka County Parks helping out with it also? Because there's a lot of it.
Yep, Manager Wynett, there absolutely is a lot of it. We're doing buckthorn removal through the course of this project so as to give the native plantings a chance to become established so that they're not immediately choked out by existing buckthorn. But long-term management of buckthorn is not something that we're proposing to take on in this site. However, Anoka Conservation District, Anoka County Parks regularly has gone through these areas. I think they kind of rotate segments. I don't want to speak for them, but because we have a monitoring site in that location, I'm regularly seeing their activities over the past 10 years. They will clear areas of buckthorn, wait 5 or 7 years and then come back and clear them again. So they have done work in the past. I think oftentimes working with the MCC crew that I referenced for live stage stuff. So I don't know if I'd say that they're responsible in the legal sense to manage buckthorn, but they do it.
Okay, thank you. And congratulations.
Manager Wageman was next.
Yeah, I have one quick comment to Manager Wynett. I can't wait to go down there. I grew up at that, going down to that part of the creek when I was a kid all the time. So I can't wait to go look at it now and see the difference. But what I was wondering about is you were talking about willows. Are you guys trying to protect them at all? The reason I ask, I tried to plant willows by my ponds, and there is absolutely no way to keep the beaver from taking them. Every time I plant them, I could literally plant them and walk in the house and they darn near be gone before you got done with your coffee. And I'm curious how you guys stop that from happening every time you plant them without doing something.
Yeah, Manager Wagaman, it definitely is a challenge. It's a little bit less of a challenge, I think, in Lower Rice Creek because we just see less beaver activity in that area. But they do love willow. You're right about that. It's more of an issue in Middle Rice Creek. We've had some luck in the past just by overplanting it, essentially. And once it becomes established after a year or two, if you can get it established, it has such a stout root system that even if the beavers take off the tops of the plants, it will grow back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the tricky part is getting it established for those first couple of years. I think it's less of an issue in Lower Rice Creek, more of a long-term issue in Middle Rice Creek, and one that we're checking on every couple of years.
Thank you.
Hey, Kyle, hands up.
Yeah, I was just going to add a note to Manager Wynett's comment about Bar working on both projects and related to the concerns about that were voiced earlier about the potential flow increases to Rice Creek. That's precisely one of the things that we noted in review of that report when the draft came in. I think Michael might have mentioned that, but yes, noted, and I think we would be very, very attentive to that as the city comes forward with any potential proposed solutions in that Norton Creek corridor. Right off the bat, the idea of flow increases, like Michael mentioned, can be kind of a non-starter. So storage is going to be critical, finding ways to get storage in that landscape. So that's all.
Okay, any further comments or questions? We have a motion on the table. We're all good. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Wynett.
Yes.
Manager Bradley. Manager Bradley.
You're muted.
Sorry, yes.
Manager Wageman.
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. Motion passes.
President Priner?
Go ahead.
Just for clarity, and we're all on the same page, to the live stake question that Manager Wagaman brought up, there was certainly clarity that it's not like something you buy in a nursery. These species, willow and dogwood, are root readily with ground contact, and Matt, if I've got it wrong, let me know, but it's just a stick of the plant itself, a section of small trunk, if you will, that's taken at a time early spring, and it's wetted and such, so it's ready to root and generate, and it's pushed into the ground where it then establishes itself and starts to sprout leaves and such. Have that right, Matt?
Yeah, Nick, that's correct. That's essentially how it's done. Oftentimes, the live stakes are just harvested on site from existing species and then transplanted to other areas where they're needed.
Yeah.
Oh,
cool. Thank you. Marcy, your hand's still up.
Okay, we're going to move on to Lametti and Sons partial pay requests. Nick?
Yes. President Preiner, board managers, this is found on page 90 of your packets. This is the fourth contractor payment, partial contractor payment for Anoka, Washington Judicial Ditch 3. Houston Engineering has reviewed and is recommending payment of $129,078.40. This is for total services completed to date minus previous payments and the 5% retainage. There is a motion on page 90.
Thank you. You need a motion, please?
Madam President, I move to approve partial payment number 4 to Lametti and Sons, Inc. for the Anoka, Washington Judicial Ditch 3 main trunk and branch 3 repair in the amount of $129,078.40.
I would second that. Manager Wyatt?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any questions, discussion? Seeing none, we're going to call for a vote. Manager Waller?
Yes.
Manager Winan?
Yes.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wagaman?
Yes.
And Manager Preiner, yes. Motion passes. Okay, so now we're to the mod resolutions.
Yes, President Preiner, Board of Managers, first on this item, I would like to address Steve Wagaman's inquiry from our workshop, where he had recollection of what the district was intending to do and DNR and this sort of thing. The mod resolutions, once they're adopted and in place, have a period of time before they sunset. So they're on the books for a 5-year period. We examine what is on the record or on the books existing, and to those issues that we have an interest in continuing support, we send a letter of support annually just to keep that momentum, if you will, in play. And so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And one of them was the DNR item. I'm sorry, I'm short on the detail there in the moment, but the item you noted was already on the books.
In the motion.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the update on that. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, and then we did have a discussion about the different resolutions that are being put forth at MOD. We had a good discussion about those. This is found on starting on page 100 are the resolutions that the district had a position on. And then we also need the delegates to be appointed.
Nick, could we just, without going through each resolution, just go, as of our discussion yesterday, the consensus to move forward on each one? Resolution 1 was to approve it.
Yes, I think that would be fine.
I think because we did have one with some questions, I believe.
In the moment, I am, here we go. Whew, thank God for paperwork, huh?
That's all right.
So President Priner, if I understood correctly, go through each resolution and state the position that we left the workshop with?
We can, yeah, just name the resolution because I think we did have some that was different and then we also still had a question on one.
Yes.
So,
So I'll just say resolution 1, workshop outcome was support approve.
okay,
Which was consistent with the recommendation. Resolution 2, workshop outcome was also support approve. Resolution 3, workshop outcome was to oppose.
Okay.
Resolution 4, workshop outcome was to oppose. Resolution 5, workshop outcome was to oppose. Resolution 6, workshop outcome was support approve. Resolution 7, workshop outcome was support approve. And resolution 8, workshop outcome was support approve. It would be good to pause there if there was any questions or discussion.
any questions on the final outcome of our workshop? Consent was to move it ahead. So the only one that we disagreed with was resolution 4, and the board decided to oppose it versus support it, which was. Anybody want to discuss that further, or are we? Good. Go ahead with a motion then, I believe.
Managers, there is a proposed motion on page 99 of the packet. Again, here we're looking at 2 motions. First one for the resolution and the second one for delegates.
Well, I'd make that second one. I move to instruct the delegates to vote in accordance with the stated Rice Creek Watershed District positions related to the 8 resolutions and budget on the agenda at the I bet that's 2020 meeting.
Bradley, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
President Priner, I'll just note for the record that the resolutions in their entirety were in the packet and available to the public to know definitively the discussion points here.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, it'll be a roll call. Manager Waller?
Yes.
Manager Wynant?
Yes.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wagaman?
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes, motion passes. So the next motion is for the, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, President Priner. I was probably going to say exactly what you are.
Go ahead.
I think that we're looking at the delegates. There was some preliminary discussion on those. My notes show that our thoughts were Marcy and Steve as delegates, with the alternates being Pat and then a second of Mike.
That sounds correct.
Okay. A motion?
Madam President, I'll move that Manager Wagaman be designated a delegate and Manager Wynant to the 2020 MOD annual meeting on December 4th, 2020, with Manager Priner and Bradley as alternates.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Will be a roll call. Manager Waller?
Yes.
Manager Wynant?
Yes.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wagaman?
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. Motion passes. Okay, so now we're going to move on We changed our number 6.
Correct. President Preiner, we made a new number 6, which was the Clean Water Council. This was to bring back.
Oh, I have to excuse me. I have to go. It's emergency. So please follow through.
Oh,
Okay, Pat, I'll take over.
Thank you.
I hope things are okay.
Yep.
So, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Manager Bradley, Board of Managers. So our new number 6 was Clean Water Council. You may recall at the Metro Mod meeting and communications from Mod that the Clean Water Council is looking for a representative from the Watershed group, I'll say, for an appointment to that. There is an application and method to do that. And Mod has that opportunity to make a recommendation to the governor who they would like to represent them at the Clean Water Council. Manager Wynett has expressed an interest in putting her hat into the ring for that.
Awesome.
And she would need to fill out the appropriate application and go forward from there with a couple of details in that process. I think Manager Wynett would like to demonstrate some transparency and ask the board, if you will, for their support or endorsement to go ahead and do that. I just want to be clear that it's just for her to make application, and then we would see what would happen. It's also noteworthy that while the board action here, it's not a district business, if you will, and Marcy, I tried to reach you before the meeting, so this is kind of the detail there. It's not district business per se. It is Watershed District General, all of us Mod business. I believe the appointee is eligible for a per diem from the Clean Water Council, and so it wouldn't be a district per diem that would be involved or in play. With that, Manager Bradley, it may be important to hear from Marcy, but otherwise I think it's just an action of transparency that Manager Wynett is looking for.
So Manager Wynett, you want to say anything?
yes. Well, first of all, I wanted to let you know of my interest, and that the way it's set up is by the end of next week, November 20th, my application or my resume and application need to be into the Mod office. So I will, this is more information at this point that I will pursue, I'm pursuing this, and that I will forward you as a point of information, the application and cover letter that I present. I know that I wanted you to know about it this week because by next week, you know, we're well on the way. I do understand that this is that Mod gives a recommendation, and that also anyone who's interested needs to go online to the governor's appointment page and fill out an application. As you know, in my work with the Minnesota Department of Ag, I attended many of those Clean Water Council meetings. So I do know people who are around the table, and I do know the work of the Clean Water Council and how important it is to be representing watersheds when the grants and when policies are discussed by them. I would also say that Victoria Reinhardt from Ramsey County is the county representative, and there might be, you know, as they look at the slate of candidates, there might be some geographic considerations as well as other considerations. So I'll just let them know that I'm interested, and we'll take it from there.
So Mr. Thomas, I would propose we adopt a resolution enthusiastically supporting the application of Marcy Wynant to serve on the Clean Water Council representing watershed districts.
Mr. President,
Sir.
maybe you'd rephrase that because she's applying and we've been asked here to endorse her ability to apply.
Good catch.
Her application. And I think that's not necessarily a resolution, but just a motion to that effect that we endorse her application. Or what is the word I wrote down here? Support, I should say.
Yeah.
Maybe not endorse, but support.
Yeah.
Manager.
Go ahead.
Manager Bradley, if I could advance the discussion a little bit or pose something. This individual who would apply obviously has to be a manager or a administrator of a watershed district. And so I think it's wholly appropriate for the rest of the district managers to take a position on their likely candidate here. I would offer, with the phrasing that was used there, the support that the board offer to Manager Wynant if she would like the uses of our communication and outreach staff that might be helpful in development of materials. Fully at Manager Wynant's discretion in reviewing the application.
So, as I hear, the modified suggested motion would be for us to enthusiastically support the application of Marcy Wynant to represent watershed districts on the Clean Water Council. And in recognition of the benefit that this would serve watershed districts, including Rice Creek Watershed District, that we offer the support of communication and outreach staff for Rice Creek as desired and beneficial to Marcy Wynant in this application.
Second.
So motion second, we'll do a roll call. Steve Wagaman.
Enthusiastic, yes.
Okay. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Wynant.
Yes, thank you.
And Manager Bradley, yes. And thank you for your offer of service.
Welcome.
We got it, Nick?
I do.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
A little bit of a challenge here for myself with computer, but
Nick, I do have the resolution up too, so I can read it.
oh, okay. So moving to the next agenda item. Yes, this is our new number 7, which is authorization for payment of the November 2020 check register. I'll note that Teresa provided this to you this morning by email, and it was also placed on the district website for public consideration. Basically, in the absence of a second meeting for the district board, we still have to go about our business and pay the bills. And so if someone would like to offer the resolution.
I have, let's see, Mr. President, I would move resolution 2020-25 authorizing for payment of, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Nick, should somebody else be doing this to authorize me to do this?
I guess I'd defer to council on that. It is.
I'm kind of authorizing myself here, so I don't know if that's proper.
No, your Manager Wagaman, I would just state that you're placing the issue before the board for a decision.
Okay.
The board itself is making the decision and giving you the authorization.
Okay,
Any
I'll just go
conflicts
forward
could be
then.
brought up under discussion. Sure.
Okay, thank you. I'll just keep going. So I'll start over. I move resolution 2020-25 authorize for the authorization for payment of November 2020 check register, or for November. Wait a minute. Authorization for payment of November 2020 check register. Yeah, that'd be right. Okay. With the following resolution, that the Board of Managers authorize the district treasurer to review and approve payment of the November 25, 2020 check register in an amount not to exceed $400,000 for operating expenses and $150,000 surety returns.
Do we have a second?
Muted.
Second.
So we'll do a roll call. Steve Wagaman,
Yes.
Andrew Waller,
Yes.
Andrew Winant,
Yes.
Manager Bradley, yes.
Okay.
Manager Bradley, the next item on the agenda is our old number 6, new number 8, which is the consideration of the check register for November 10th. That is found on page 128 of your packet.
Okay, yep, Mr. President, I'll move to approve the check register dated November 10th, 2020 in the amount of $150,238.89 prepared by Redpath and Company.
Do we have a
I
second?
second that.
Any discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Steve Wagaman,
Yes.
Manager Waller,
Yes.
Manager Winant,
Yes.
Manager Bradley, yes.
Okay.
Manager Bradley, next item on the agenda as we move into items for discussion and information is the district engineer update and timeline. It is found on page 131 is the actual Houston Engineering submittal. I would like to bring to the board's attention the adjustment that Houston Engineering, Mr. Ottern, has made for us. The second column is the task order manager. Its purpose there is to improve our communication between the district and Houston Engineering so that we have good communication between the different staff that are involved in these types of things.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Chris, is there anything you want to tell us about this?
Sure.
Overall?
Board of Managers, just a couple of items. One is regarding Anoka Washington JD3. We talked about that earlier. You approved the partial payment on that project. And just as a quick progress update, all of the ditch cleaning work and all of the culvert replacements have been completed on that project. Really, the only thing remaining on that project is to complete stabilization and some final touch-up grading along the project. And unfortunately, they're probably just maybe a couple of weeks shy of being able to get that done in the regular construction season. But then we had that winter spurt that hit there, and that kind of shut down any ability to really effectively complete that remaining stabilization. So they're going to touch that up in the spring once things soften back up out there, and they're able to get back out and complete some of that work. Other than that, it's completed. Then the other item I'll bring up is No County Ditch 5362. Nick and Ashley and I met with the city of Circle Pines last week to go over a few of those items that we had discussed and that the city had brought up at one of our previous board workshops regarding some of their concerns on the project. So we did go out and do a site walkthrough in a few different areas, including the area that we're planning to place some of the spoil material, walking through and taking a look at some of the city outfalls and the conditions there, and then taking a look down at the stormwater pond upstream of Golden Lake, and which is adjacent to that iron enhanced sand filter area. So I think we had some productive discussion there. I don't know that we're going to be able to fully address all of the interests that the city has, but we're certainly going to, at least what they would like to see, but we're going to address what we can within the project and try to come up with a solution that works for the benefiting landowners of the system as well as the city itself.
Mr. President?
Manager Waller.
Yes, I had, was some of the city maintenance people from the city of Hugo contacted me, concerned about the seating, Chris. And so maybe you or Nick could reach out to the Hugo and assure them that, because they had citizens asking them at the asking the maintenance group, Scott Anderson is in charge of that group, asking about if the reseating was going to be completed or not, or what, and just reassure them that, as I did when I was contacted, yes, it's going to be done next spring is what I said. I was just guessing at the time, but sounds like I was pretty close. So if you do that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, Manager Waller, I'll make sure that we get back in contact with the city just to make sure that they're on the same page as us with that and be able to have the most up-to-date information. But yeah, that would be the intent, is to, right now we have areas stabilized for over the winter, but certainly we'll be having the final seeding done in the spring there. And I'll relay that message.
Thank you.
Manager Bradley, to Mr. Otterness, it would seem to me also that, any other concerns that they would have on the system, and I'm sure they'd communicate them at that time, not to suggest that all problems are the district's, but their satisfaction, if you will, with the work that's been done. And I know it involves some property owned by them, so.
Mr. President?
Sir.
Yeah, I did not hear any complaints from the city when I had this conversation with with them. Nothing at all. It was complimentary about how well it was done from the few maintenance people I was speaking to. I'm not going to name them today, but they pointed out that they'd received some telephone calls or inquiries from citizens along there asking about it, and I reassured them that it would be done, and that's all I'm asking you to do, to talk to the administrator or the maintenance. I don't know what his proper title is, Scott Anderson or Brian Mayer there. That's all.
Yep.
So just to keep it open, that they have a little reassurance, so when they have somebody telephone them, they can say, well, yes, this is going to happen. We have the confidence of the district.
Manager Bradley, thank you, Manager Waller, for the clarification. It does bring another subject to mind, and not to dwell here unnecessarily, but there was a city pond directly adjacent to the ditch system, which we're likely to have ongoing conversation with the city, where there was some potential for bank failure, some weeping through the soil of the bank, and in this sort of thing. So as all things, we have a continuing relationship with our municipalities, and I'm sure Mr. Otterness will be on that as well.
Chris, I see you nodding your head, Chris, so.
Yep, that I agree, and that's all I had for my report.
Okay, any other questions or concerns? Do we act on this one, Nick, or do we just accept it and go on?
Just good discussion. Yep.
All right.
Informational items. Manager Bradley, the next item on the agenda is item 2, November, December calendar updates. That is located on page 134 of your packet. Good to note again that your November and December are unique in that we have the holidays and a changed schedule there. Wednesday, December 2nd, for the Citizen Advisory Committee. Looks like
that's Manager Wynant. I apologize.
Oh.
She'll be attending.
Is this December 2nd?
Yeah, take it out. You're free.
Thank you for the freedom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because, usually they have a party and you get food.
I know.
Yeah. You'll
Not
have to
this
bring
time.
your own Swedish meatballs.
December 7th is the board workshop. Note that Wednesday, December 9th, your regular board meeting is at 7 o'clock in the evening. That's for the truth and taxation and the final position on your budget for the district.
Very good. Thanks, Nick. Next thing is what? Your update?
I would like to, yes, and this can be a part of that. So administrator updates, along with your calendar, I am looking at opportunities that I'll be communicating with the managers via email for potential meet with Erica Garms for staff retreat, staff board advancement. So don't have a lot of detail in the moment, but look for that communication. Hopefully we can set something up coming soon here.
Anything else?
I'll note Manager Bradley, there was, I believe, a communication, perhaps. I have nothing else. Thank you.
All right, fine. So that brings us, I believe, to manager updates.
Correct.
Steve Wagerman, you have an update?
I have nothing.
RC? Any
You
updates?
heard mine. No, thank you.
John, any updates?
Yes. Today is Marine Corps birthday.
Congratulations.
So I wish all former and current Marines happy birthday. And tomorrow it's Veterans Day. So I wish all former and current veterans a happy Veterans Day and a safe one.
So for myself, I received a request from the Bald Eagle Area Association. It's a relatively lengthy letter thanking us, and a specific request was made for me to read it to you. I believe it's identical to what was in the White Bear Press, so this may be repeated good news, but let me proceed to honor their request. As a Lake Association board, we wanted to formally thank you for your investment in the water quality of Bald Eagle Lake. It's very encouraging to see implementation and installation of some of the water quality enhancement projects identified in the 2016 Urban Stormwater Retrofit Analysis Report. It was an exceptional effort on your part that made it possible to get the $392,000 grant used in construction of the pump-operated iron-enhanced sand filter near Four Seasons Park. We're encouraged that this project is expected to reduce downstream phosphorus running into our lake by 43 pounds per year. Our Lake Association members have regularly paid dues to help us afford weed treatments, boat launch inspections, and other water quality projects, so Lakeshore homeowners are invested in Bald Eagle Lake as well. We appreciate that no contribution was required from homeowners for Ditch 11 improvements, especially during these trying times of lost jobs and incomes. You have partnered with us on many projects in the past several years, and we appreciate and admire your expertise and guidance to improve the water quality of the lake. In 2016, you coordinated a large project with the help of many funding sources, including our Lake Association, by a special taxing district, the City of Hugo and Anoka Golf Course. The alum treatments and the other 2016 projects have had a significant and noticeable improvement on water quality. The SAFL baffles installed last summer are expected to realize a 55% reduction in downstream sediment deposits. We've come a long way from the 1980 murky algae-filled lake. In 2017, we passed the requirements for nutrients, algae, and clarity for the first time since measurements began, thanks to partnering with Rice Creek Watershed District. We're also grateful for the Rice Creek Watershed District shoreline restoration and rain garden matching grant programs, which has received a lot of interest this year. For 2020, the Bald Eagle Area Association is also contributing matching funds up to $15,000 total for Rice Creek Watershed District approved homeowner projects. 4 shoreline restoration projects have been approved, and 3 will be receiving matching grant funds from us. These projects will be installed next spring. This too will improve our water quality and reduce phosphorus loadings. Thank you again for your ongoing support of the beautiful natural resource we have in Bald Eagle Lake. Having an urban suburban lake with good water quality enhances the entire community and offers many recreational opportunities to so many residents in the area. Thank you for what you do. We look forward to an ongoing working relationship with Rice Creek Watershed District in our efforts to maintain Bald Eagle Lake water quality.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
This has been a 20-year project. I know they're referencing just maybe the last 5 years or so, but it actually, it started in the City of Hugo council chambers over a discussion of making sure that the 1 acre lots on the northeast side of Bald Eagle had sewer. And the city put them in there. It's like 50 homes out there or so that were there. That's an important thing to note. Later on, Manager LaRue had been a councilman on the city that was very strong. He was very strong advocate of that sewer. Came on the district here, and some of the things that were suggested. For example, I remember being on the advisory committee and being shocked when the administrator suggested we dump 4 inches of iron filings over the complete lake during the winter. And my reaction was, have you never heard of milepost 7? Here in Minnesota is a famous issue about how those iron filings getting up and going. So I'm an advocate myself of the iron enhancement filter because, as I said, when it was proposed that we have control over that, whereas dumping train loads of iron filings 4 to 6 inches deep across the ice on Bald Eagle Lake in the winter, you have no control over at all what happens to that. That was one of the craziest things I heard from, and this was being proposed by a longtime conservationist individual who had been with national organizations like this, you know, like I said, you never. So I want to point out that the city of Hugo and their work initiated this some 20 years ago, and the initial studies that were done by Wink Engineering were done on the board previous to my term here. So we should remind the folks that this project started sometime 2001 or 2. We're trying to get Wink to do the study. Joe Bishop did the specialized study that became the basis of all the board action to achieve the letter points out that first time the murkiness has gone away. Thank you very much for your help.
And John, you are absolutely correct. Some of the biggest improvements that have occurred in water quality on this lake, as you all know, I live on this lake, Bald Eagle, occurred because of municipalities working with citizens to install sewer and water rather than using septic. I live in a house that 10 years ago was on septic, and there are bays on this lake that you didn't even want to kayak through. That it was so infected. And the problems we used to have with the breaks in the sewage systems, where every time we had a big storm, we'd have a plume, and then 3 days later, the whole lake would turn, scummy green. So a lot of efforts by a lot of the municipalities and a lot of people, and it's really paid off. And currently, I know Matt Koshin's working with the Bald Eagle Area Association to look at a hole in the alum in the deep water, and maybe whether or not they would bring a small alum treatment program to fill up that hole in 2022. So thanks. You're right, John. Thanks to everybody. Anything else? Motion?
Manager.
Yep, yes, go ahead, Nick.
Manager Bradley, I think I'll note here that yesterday the board met in special meeting, and you did call for a special meeting, which isn't on the calendar, for next Monday at 3 o'clock.
Very good, thank you.
And Manager Bradley, what about administrator's 12-month performance review info?
What about it?
What about it?
Manager Bradley, if I might.
Yes.
Yes, that is the next item on the agenda. as the the terms and conditions of my employment state in November of 2020, after my initial 12 months, I'm to have a review and so on thereafter, with any change in compensation effective January of 2021 and thereafter. I think it would be good to note that President Preiner is absent. I think it's important for all of you to discuss it, but as you wish. And maybe the framework, I'll just note, in the past, or the last time we did a review, was based on the 7 goals for the administrator. Manager Bradley, I believe you initially authored that document. Outside of that, I don't know of what format or method you intended this to take.
So help me out here, Nick. When did we last evaluate you?
You last evaluated me in April at the 6 month. And
Oh, so I thought at that time we authorized a salary for you for 12 months from then that included going into effect this January.
No, that's not how the terms and conditions read. But certainly, if you want to review that's appropriate. I'll note Louis is obviously online with us, and if we do have the discussion, I would look for a closed session.
Certainly. So obviously, I'm being caught flat-footed here. We need to have Pat. We need to do this, and so we need to do this presumably in conjunction, maybe, although it'll be closed, with our upcoming workshop. And I will communicate with Pat and ask her to do that.
Yep. Very well. Please let me know if there's anything that I might provide in advance of that. I guess at a minimum, I would suggest the 7 goals for the administrator, so that the other managers could review it as we prepare.
Since you seem to have that at your fingertips better than I do, if you would forward that around to all of us as my authorized, because that's what I would do.
Yeah.
With
yes.
My suggestion that we would use that for our discussion at the upcoming workshop, and that we would do our fulfill our responsibility towards you, Nick.
Okay. Manager Bradley, I would take that to be the Monday, December 7th board workshop. I'll note that workshop or board meeting, that distinction that the board has made is one of practical. You can still make motions in a workshop and take action. Again.
So my thought, Nick, is that we would do the review at the workshop and then authorize it at the meeting that followed it.
I don't see that as problematic.
Because we've got a meeting that follows, what, a day or two after?
Correct, on the 9th.
All right. Yeah. So that's how I just saw that.
Very well.
If that's acceptable to you.
Well, I'll let you know that December 9th is my birthday, so seems very appropriate.
You're going to work on your birthday?
Yeah, I work on my birthday, and I will be receiving gifts, perhaps. All joking aside, that would work fine, Manager Bradley, Board of Managers. If we can have a good discussion about my performance and compensation as you see fit. Thank you.
All right.
That is the last item on the agenda. I will send that document out. I will note, maybe Teresa can print it before Manager Waller leaves, but I think we do have a little bit of time there.
Would you also have her send us the salary range? For
Yeah.
your position?
Yep, we
Good
can do
thought.
that.
And a reminder of what we are currently paying you,
Okay.
if that's acceptable to you. It will
Yeah,
make it
that's-
easier for us to think about this.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right, we can certainly do that. So,
Marvelous.
just for Manager Waller's benefit, it probably won't be immediate then. We'll just make sure and get it mailed out,
Yes.
emailed out. Yeah.
Thank you. That's more than acceptable.
So, Mr. Chair, I have a question about reviews. So, Nick, do you do reviews for all staff on their anniversary? Is it yearly? Do you bring that information to the board? How does
Yes.
that?
Manager Bradley. I'm throwing without tapping from Manager Bradley, Board of
It's pretty clear that
Managers.
I don't have this down either, so don't worry about it.
Thank you. Manager Wynant, to your question, the policies of the district are set up similar to mine. There is an initial learning period with all employees when they come on board. That is 6 months. Thereafter, there is a 12-month review, regardless of where we're at in the calendar. And then from that point on, they're annual. We'll just be getting into that now. So November, December, there's annual reviews of the administrator of the staff, and any compensation adjustment is effective January of the year that follows. Historically, those reviews have not been brought forward to the board. It's just been a matter of discussion between the individual staff and the administrator, and then it goes in their personnel file.
Okay, thank you.
Are we now concluded?
Manager Bradley, we are at the end of our agenda.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Mr. President, I move adjourn.
Second.
All right, we do a roll call. Manager Wagaman,
Yes.
Manager Weiner,
Yes.
Manager Waller,
Yes.
Manager Bradley, yes. Thank you all for your support. And clearly, I missed Pat. She does this so seamlessly. So it tells me
Let's hope everything's okay.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, thank you. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Bye.